Imagine a room. In this room are 16 of the most brilliant minds on planet Earth. Not just intelligent, but certified, quantifiable geniuses. PhDs in mathematics and economics from Harvard, MIT, and Chicago. Among them are two men who will soon be awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences for creating a formula so powerful, it claims to have unlocked the very DNA of financial markets, a mathematical key to pricing risk with godlike precision. The firm they have built, Long-Term Capital Management, is not merely a hedge fund, it is a monument to intellectual horsepower. It is the physical manifestation of the belief that genius can conquer uncertainty. In the mid-1990s, their returns are breathtaking, supernatural. They have never had a losing quarter. Their complex models, running on powerful computers, analyze thousands of trades at once, identifying microscopic pricing discrepancies across global bond markets and exploiting them with massive amounts of borrowed money. For every $1 of their own capital, they have borrowed 30, then 100. They are the smartest men in the room, and they are leveraging their intelligence to the absolute hilt. They are playing a game of forward-thinking prediction, a game they believe their genius has made them invincible at. They are hunting for success, for profit, for the brilliant insight that no one else can see. And then, in the autumn of 1998, they die. Not physically, but financially. A localized debt default in Russia, a single, unforeseen event that their Nobel-winning models had calculated as a 10 sigma event. Something so statistically improbable it should only happen once in the entire history of the universe, triggers a cascade of chaos. The microscopic pricing discrepancies they exploited suddenly widen into chasms. Their leveraged bets, once a source of immense profit, become a doomsday machine, a financial black hole sucking their capital into oblivion. In a matter of weeks, Long-Term Capital Management loses $4.6 billion, an amount so vast and so systemically intertwined with the world's largest banks that it threatens to collapse the entire global financial system. The Federal Reserve itself is forced to orchestrate a bailout, not to save the geniuses but to save the world from their genius. This is not a story about a bad investment. It is a parable about a poisoned idea. An idea that is so deeply embedded in our culture, in our education, and in our own psychological wiring that we rarely even notice it. It is the idea that the path to great success is paved with brilliance, with heroic acts of foresight, with the relentless, forward-looking pursuit of what will go right. The men of LTCM were not fools. They were the apex predators of the intellectual world. Their failure was not a failure of intelligence, it was a failure of philosophy. They asked the wrong question. Their entire $100 billion enterprise was built on the question, how can we be brilliant enough to win? They never stopped to ask a much simpler, much more powerful question. What are all the ways, no matter how improbable, that we could be made to look like idiots, and how can we ensure that those things never happen? They focused on identifying success, and in doing so, they were utterly blind to the mechanics of ruin. Now imagine a different room. An office in Omaha, Nebraska, cluttered with books and financial reports. In this room sits a man who, by his own admission, is not the smartest person in the world. He uses no complex algorithms, no supercomputers. He famously says he can do all the math he needs on the back of an envelope, and if he needs anything more, the idea is probably too complicated. While the titans of LTCM were building their monument to predictive genius, this man was buying companies that sold furniture, chocolate, and soft drinks. While they were leveraging their capital 100 to 1, he was hoarding cash and spoke of debt as a weapon pointed at one's own head. The world saw him as a folksy anachronism, a relic from a simpler time. Yet, when the financial storm of 1998 hit, the storm that vaporized the Nobel laureates, this man's enterprise, Berkshire Hathaway, did not shudder. It did not crack. It thrived. Because Warren Buffett's entire multi-hundred billion-dollar fortune, his entire life's work, is not built on the same operating system as the rest of the world. He did not become one of the wealthiest humans in history by chasing genius or predicting the future. He did it by building a cognitive fortress, a psychological system designed for one primary purpose: the systematic, ruthless, and relentless avoidance of stupidity. He understood that in the game of wealth and life, true genius is not found in the acts of commission, the brilliant things you do. It is found in the acts of omission, the catastrophic errors you don't make. This is the great inversion, the profound, counterintuitive truth at the heart of all sustainable success. The master algorithm is not "how do I succeed?" It is "how could I fail, and how do I prevent it?" This mental operating system has a name. It is called inversion. It is not just an investing trick. It is a complete psychological framework for decision-making, a master key that unlocks a level of rationality and clarity that is almost unattainable through conventional, forward-thinking logic. This documentary is a deconstruction of that system. We are not here to share folksy wisdom or a few clever quotes. We are here to disassemble the cognitive architecture of inversion, to lay bare the psychological machinery that makes it work, and to provide you with the blueprint for installing this powerful operating system in your own mind. You have been taught your entire life to build a plan for success. Prepare to learn that the only plan that matters is the one that makes failure impossible. This is the story of how to win by obsessing over how not to lose. The human mind is a storytelling machine. It is not a logic processor. From our earliest days, we understand the world through narrative. The hero embarks on a quest, overcomes obstacles, and achieves a grand victory. This is the fundamental structure of every myth, every movie, every bedtime story we have ever heard. This narrative instinct is so powerful, so deeply ingrained in our cognitive hardware, that it shapes our perception of reality itself. We seek out stories of success. We lionize the visionary entrepreneur who saw the future, the brilliant general who devised the perfect battle plan, the masterful investor who predicted the next big trend. Our business schools teach through case studies of triumphant companies. Our media bombards us with lists of the 30 under 30 and profiles of billionaire innovators. We are addicted to the narrative of heroic achievement. This addiction creates a profound and dangerous blind spot. We are so focused on the anatomy of success that we are almost entirely ignorant of the anatomy of failure. We study the one winner and ignore the 99 who, using the exact same strategy, failed. This is known in cognitive science as survivorship bias. It is a psychological trap that leads us to systematically overestimate the efficacy of a successful strategy and underestimate the role of luck, timing, and hidden risk. We see the billionaire who dropped out of college and conclude that a college education is unnecessary for success, ignoring the millions of dropouts who did not become billionaires. We see the company that took on massive debt to fund rapid growth and won, ignoring the graveyard of companies that tried the same thing and were wiped out. Our storytelling brain, our success-obsessed culture, constantly pushes us toward a dangerous conclusion: that success is a matter of finding the right things to add. The right strategy, the right tactic, the right morning routine, the right stock tip. We are conditioned to believe that the path to a better outcome is paved with more knowledge, more action, more complexity, more hustle. This is the path of addition, the philosophy of more. And it is fragile. It is the philosophy of long-term capital management. The belief that with enough added intelligence, enough added data, enough added leverage, you can conquer the future. Inversion is the antidote to this poison. It is a philosophy of subtraction. It posits that the most robust and reliable path to a good outcome is not in the quest for brilliance, but in the relentless removal of stupidity. This concept, while seemingly simple, represents a radical rewiring of our default mental programming. It is a shift from offense to defense, from seeking wins to avoiding losses, from hunting for the magic formula of success to identifying and neutralizing every potential landmine of failure. This idea is not new. It is an ancient and powerful form of wisdom, a thread that runs through both classical philosophy and modern science. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome called it premeditatio malorum asterisk, the premeditation of evils. Seneca, one of its greatest practitioners, advised that before undertaking any journey, one should sit down and contemplate all the things that could go wrong. The ship could sink, pirates could attack, a storm could arise, a sickness could take hold. By vividly imagining these negative outcomes in advance, the Stoic was not being pessimistic, they were being strategic. Firstly, they were psychologically inoculating themselves against the shock of misfortune. Secondly, and more importantly, they were creating a practical checklist for prevention. If pirates are a risk, perhaps sail a more protected route. If storms are a risk, perhaps sail in a calmer season, or on a sturdier ship. The focus was not on the glorious arrival at the destination, but on the systematic removal of impediments to that arrival. In the modern era, this concept has been given a new name: via negativa, a Latin term that means the negative way. It is the principle that we often know more about what is wrong than what is right. For example, in medicine, it is far easier to identify things that are definitively bad for your health, poison, smoking, chronic sleep deprivation, than it is to identify a single thing that guarantees perfect health. Therefore, the most robust path to health is not necessarily in adding an exotic supplement or a new fad diet, but in rigorously subtracting the known harms. Health in this framework is defined not by the presence of something good, but by the absence of something bad. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the philosopher of randomness and risk, has built his life's work on this principle. He argues that systems become robust and anti-fragile, meaning they gain from disorder, not by becoming more complex and optimized for a single predicted outcome, but by removing the parts that make them fragile. A stone arch is strong not because of the stones that are there, but because of the specific shape of the empty space created by the removal of other stones. It is strength by subtraction. Warren Buffett, perhaps more than any other figure in modern history, has weaponized the asterisk via negativa and applied it to the domain of wealth creation. His entire cognitive operating system is built on this principle of subtraction. He has famously said, "Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1." This is not a clever aphorism, it is the central algorithm of his mind. He understands that the mathematics of compounding are brutal and unforgiving. A single, catastrophic 50% loss requires a 100% gain just to get back to even. The damage from one large negative event is vastly more powerful than the benefit of one large positive event. Therefore, the entire game must be reoriented. The goal is not to score the most points. The goal is to never be taken out of the game. This requires a profound shift in mental focus. The average investor asks, "How much money can I make from this investment?" Their brain immediately starts to spin a story of success, a narrative of all the things that could go right. This activates a cascade of cognitive biases. Confirmation bias kicks in, causing them to seek out information that supports their rosy narrative and ignore contradictory evidence. Overconfidence bias, fueled by the intoxicating vision of future riches, makes them underestimate the true risks involved. The availability heuristic makes them overweight recent, positive examples of similar investments, while forgetting the silent graveyard of failures. Buffett, through the discipline of inversion, asks a different set of questions. What are all the ways this investment could lead to a permanent loss of capital? What are the failure modes? How could this business be destroyed? How could its management mislead me? How could its industry change? How could I, through my own psychological weakness, be induced to sell at the worst possible moment? By starting with failure, he forces his mind into a different mode of operation. He is not a storyteller. He is a diagnostician. He is not a prophet. He is a pre-mortem examiner. This process systematically short-circuits the very biases that lead others to ruin. It replaces optimistic storytelling with paranoid science. It shifts the burden of proof. An idea is not considered good until it has been proven to be robustly resistant to a long list of potential failure points. This is the essence of the Buffett-monger approach. It is an understanding that extraordinary long-term results are not the product of a few brilliant offensive plays. They are the product of a relentless, suffocating, and brilliantly executed defense. It is a victory achieved not by addition, but by the overwhelming power of subtraction. The genius is not in what they do. It is in what they have built a system to consistently not do. The first and most critical function of the inversion operating system is to act as a counteragent to the native flaws in our own cognitive hardware. Our brains are not evolved for the modern investment world. They are evolved for survival on the African savanna, a world of immediate, visible threats and short-term decisions. This evolutionary legacy has left us with a suite of mental shortcuts or heuristics that, while useful for escaping a lion, are disastrous when applied to a financial statement. Inversion is the cognitive equivalent of a software patch, a corrective algorithm that overwrites these dangerous default settings. Let's deconstruct the three most lethal cognitive biases in the realm of decision-making and witness how inversion systematically dismantles each one. First, consider the mother of all investment mistakes, the overconfidence bias. This is our natural tendency to overestimate our own knowledge and abilities. We believe our forecasts are more accurate than they are, our understanding of a company is more complete than it is, and our ability to handle risk is greater than it is. It is this bias that whispers in our ear that we have found the next big thing, that we see a pattern no one else does, that this time, it's different. The story of long-term capital management is the ultimate cautionary tale of overconfidence. Their Nobel Prize-winning intelligence led them to believe they had transcended risk, that their models were a perfect reflection of reality. They were so confident in their ability to predict the future that they leveraged themselves to the point where a single unexpected event could cause total annihilation. Now, apply the inversion protocol. A forward-thinking, overconfident mind asks, how can I prove this investment idea is brilliant? This question sends the brain on a mission to find confirming evidence, to build a compelling narrative of success. It is an exercise in ego gratification. The inverted mind asks, let's assume this idea is terrible. What evidence would prove me wrong and show that it's actually a catastrophic mistake waiting to happen? This simple flip of the question forces a state of intellectual humility. It shifts the mental process from advocacy to criticism. Instead of trying to be the brilliant prosecutor making the case for the investment, you become the skeptical defense attorney trying to poke holes in it. You are not searching for reasons to be right, you are hunting for reasons you might be wrong. This process directly attacks the root of overconfidence. It forces you to confront the limits of your knowledge, to acknowledge uncertainty, and to focus on what you can't know. Buffett's famous concept of the circle of competence is a direct institutionalization of this inverted thinking. He doesn't ask, what are all the things I can understand? He asks, what are the things I absolutely cannot understand? And then builds a rigid fence around that territory of ignorance. By rigorously defining where his knowledge ends, he neutralizes the danger of overconfidence. He simply does not play in games where he is likely to be the fool. The second lethal bias that inversion diffuses is the confirmation bias. This is the silent assassin of rational thought. It is our tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. Once we form a hypothesis, for example, this company is a great investment, our brain automatically turns into a confirmation-seeking machine. We will click on the positive news article and skim past the negative one. We will listen intently to the analyst who agrees with us and dismiss the one who disagrees as a fool. We are not processing information objectively. We are filtering reality to fit our desired narrative. This is why it is so easy to fall in love with a stock and so difficult to admit we were wrong. Now watch how inversion shatters this mental prison. The process of inversion by its very nature is a confirmation bias-killing algorithm. When you begin by asking, how could this fail? You are forcing your brain to do the very thing it is programmed to avoid. You are forcing it to actively search for disconfirming evidence. You are not just passively open to hearing it, you are making it the entire point of the exercise. Charlie Munger describes this as a moral and ethical duty for any serious thinker. He says, I never allow myself to have an opinion on anything that I don't know the other side's argument better than they do. This is not just a clever debate tactic. It is a cognitive protocol for destroying confirmation bias. Before he allows himself to believe an idea, he must first build the strongest possible case against it. He is trying to destroy his own best ideas before the market does it for him. This process transforms the decision-making landscape. It is no longer about being right. It is about stress testing an idea against every conceivable point of failure. If, and only if, the idea survives this brutal, self-inflicted assault, can it then be considered worthy of capital? This creates a portfolio not of beloved, unexamined ideas, but of battle-hardened survivors that have withstood the most rigorous intellectual challenge imaginable. Finally, consider the insidious duo of the planning fallacy and the availability heuristic. The planning fallacy is our tendency to underestimate the time, costs, and risks of future actions, while simultaneously overestimating their benefits. It's why home renovations always cost twice as much and take twice as long as expected. It's why corporate mergers so often fail to deliver their promised synergies. We construct a best-case scenario in our minds and anchor to it. The availability heuristic feeds this fallacy by causing us to base our judgments on information that is recent, dramatic, and easily recalled. We see headlines about tech startups having billion-dollar exits, so we overestimate the probability of our own startup succeeding. The dramatic success stories are available. The thousands of quiet failures are invisible. Together, these biases create a dangerously distorted view of the future, one where the upside is vivid and the downside is blurry and abstract. Inversion corrects this distorted vision with brutal clarity. The first step of the inversion protocol, vividly defining catastrophic failure, is a direct assault on the planning fallacy. It forces you to ignore the rosy best-case scenario and instead construct an equally vivid, detailed worst-case scenario. You are not just vaguely acknowledging risk, you are painting a high-definition picture of ruin. What does it look like to run out of money? What does it feel like to have a competitor launch a superior product? What is the actual process of a co-founder dispute tearing a company apart? By making the consequences of failure visceral and real, you anchor your mind to the downside, not the upside. The second step, listing every possible path to that failure, is a weapon against the availability heuristic. You are no longer relying on the dramatic, available stories of success. You are systematically forcing yourself to research and consider the mundane, forgotten, and far more common pathways to failure. You read the post-mortems of failed companies. You study the common mistakes in your industry. You create a failure checklist, a library of all the ways things can go wrong. This process replaces easily available narratives with hard-won statistical reality. It is the difference between a tourist looking at a map of a mountain, pointing to the summit, and an experienced mountaineer who studies every crevasse, every avalanche-prone slope, and every potential storm pattern. The tourist is focused on the goal. The mountaineer is obsessed with not dying. One has a dream, the other has a plan. This is the fundamental power of the inversion operating system. It does not make you smarter, it makes you wiser. It is a systematic process for overriding the default settings of a brain that is ill-suited for the complex, high-stakes decisions of the modern world. It is the installation of a cognitive discipline that immunizes you against the very biases that lead the brilliant, the confident, and the forward-thinking majority to their own ruin. The power of inversion lies not in its philosophical elegance, but in its brutal, practical utility. It is not an abstract concept to be admired. It is a working algorithm to be executed. At its core, the Buffett-Munger inversion protocol is a simple, two-step process. But do not mistake simplicity for a lack of power. Like a simple lever that can move a massive boulder, this two-step cognitive sequence can shift the entire weight of a decision, from a foundation of hope and bias to a foundation of logic and resilience. This is the practical engine of the inversion operating system, the repeatable procedure for turning the abstract idea of avoiding stupidity into a concrete, actionable workflow. Let's deconstruct this algorithm step by step. Step 1. Clearly and vividly define catastrophic failure. This is the crucial first move, and it is the step most people skip entirely. Our brains are allergic to contemplating failure. It feels negative, counterproductive, and pessimistic. We want to focus on our goals, on the vision of success. This is a fatal error. The inversion protocol demands that you begin by looking directly into the abyss. Before you analyze the potential upside of any decision, be it an investment, a career change, or a new business venture, you must first define with unflinching clarity what total, unmitigated catastrophic failure looks like. This is not a vague acknowledgement of risk, it is a detailed and specific articulation of the worst possible outcome. If you are considering an investment, the catastrophic failure is not a 10% dip, it is a 100% permanent loss of capital. The money is gone forever. If you are considering leaving your job to start a company, catastrophic failure is not just the business failing. It is the business failing after you have burned through your life savings, remortgaged your home, and strained your personal relationships to the breaking point. The goal of this step is to make the downside as emotionally resonant and as visually clear as the fantasized upside. Why is this so critical? Because it sets the entire frame for the analysis that follows. By starting with a clear definition of what you must avoid at all costs, you establish the non-negotiable boundary conditions for the decision. The primary objective is no longer to achieve success. The primary objective becomes to, under no circumstances, allow this catastrophic failure to occur. This reframing is everything. It transforms you from a treasure hunter seeking a prize into a bomb disposal expert trying to survive. The treasure hunter can afford to be optimistic and take chances. The bomb disposal expert must be paranoid, systematic, and pathologically focused on what could go wrong. Step 2. List every conceivable path to that failure. Once you have a crystal clear, high-definition picture of the catastrophe you are trying to avoid, the second step is to brainstorm every single thing that could possibly lead to that outcome. This is a process of exhaustive, no-holds-barred pre-mortem analysis. You imagine you are in the future, looking back on the smoldering ruins of your decision and writing the history of how it all went wrong. During this stage, there is no such thing as an irrelevant or improbable cause. Every potential vulnerability must be identified and placed on the list. The list should be brutally comprehensive. For a business investment, the list might include technological disruption making the product obsolete, a new low-cost competitor entering the market, a key supplier going bankrupt, the loss of a major customer, a fraudulent management team, a change in government regulations, a shift in consumer tastes, an over-leveraged balance sheet collapsing during a recession, a poorly executed acquisition, a brand-destroying public relations disaster. For the career change example, the list might include running out of funding before achieving product-market fit, a critical flaw in the business model, co-founder conflict, personal burnout, a failure to market and sell the product effectively, being crushed by a larger incumbent, a key employee leaving at a critical moment, an inability to adapt to market feedback. This is not an exercise in pessimism. It is an exercise in systemic risk identification. You are mapping the entire territory of potential failure. You are building the ultimate not-to-do list. Each item on this list is a landmine that must be either avoided or systematically diffused. This list becomes the core of your decision-making framework. Your strategy is no longer about what you will do to succeed. It is about the systems, rules, and structures you will put in place to ensure that none of the items on your failure list can ever come to pass. This two-step protocol is the functional core of the Inversion OS. It is a simple but profound cognitive discipline. Step 1 forces you to define the stakes of the game with brutal honesty. Step 2 forces you to map the entire playing field of risk, not just the single hopeful path to the end zone. It is a process that transforms decision-making from an act of optimistic forecasting into an act of rigorous paranoid engineering. You are no longer designing a plan for success. You are architecting a fortress against failure, and in a world defined by uncertainty, chaos, and randomness, the fortress is the only structure that endures. Now that we have deconstructed the abstract theory and the practical two-step algorithm of inversion, let's observe this powerful cognitive tool in the hands of its master. Warren Buffett's entire investment philosophy, when viewed through the lens of inversion, snaps into focus. His seemingly separate rules and principles, the economic moat, the focus on management quality, the margin of safety, the circle of competence, are not a disconnected checklist of folksy wisdom. They are the logical, inevitable outputs of a mind that has relentlessly applied the inversion protocol for over 60 years. Each principle is an antidote, a specific and powerful defense against a major category of failure he identified on his master premortem list. Let us begin by inverting the concept of business quality. The average analyst or investor starts with a forward-looking question: what will make this business grow and succeed? This question leads them to search for exciting narratives, disruptive technology, massive addressable markets, visionary product roadmaps. Buffett begins at the opposite end of the problem. His primary question is, how could this business be killed? This simple inversion immediately changes the entire focus of the analysis. Instead of hunting for the ephemeral signs of future growth, he begins by hunting for the enduring signs of invulnerability. He is not looking for businesses that are easy to grow. He is looking for businesses that are almost impossible to destroy. This is the origin of his famous economic moat concept. An economic moat is not a growth strategy, it is a survival strategy. It is a structural feature of a business that protects it from the two most common causes of corporate death: competition and change. By starting with the question, how could this business be killed, he is forced to identify the killers. A new competitor with a lower price? A moat, like a low-cost production process, like Geico, or a powerful brand that commands pricing power, like Coca-Cola, is the defense. A new technology that makes the product obsolete? A moat, built on something timeless, like the human desire for a specific taste, or a trusted reputation, like See's Candies, is the defense. He is not trying to predict the future. He is trying to find businesses that are so structurally sound that they don't require a favorable future to survive and prosper. Consider his investment in Coca-Cola. A forward-thinking analyst in the 1980s might have focused on international growth prospects or new product lines. Buffett, applying inversion, would have asked, how do you kill Coca-Cola? To kill Coca-Cola, you would have to erase a century of brand conditioning from billions of minds across the globe. You would have to replicate a global distribution network that reaches every remote village on the planet. You would have to somehow convince people that the taste they have associated with happiness and refreshment their entire lives is now undesirable. He concluded it was almost impossible. The business was a fortress. The inversion of the problem led him directly to the answer. Next, let us invert the analysis of management. The conventional approach is to ask, is this CEO a visionary? Are they charismatic? Do they have a bold plan for the future? This leads investors to fall in love with celebrity CEOs, smooth talkers who can spin a compelling story about future greatness. This is a path fraught with peril, as visionaries can often be reckless empire builders or, in the worst cases, outright frauds. Buffett inverts the question. He asks, what are all the ways a management team could destroy an otherwise good business? His premortem list of managerial failure modes is long and specific. A CEO could use the company's cash to make stupid, ego-driven acquisitions at inflated prices. They could take on massive amounts of debt to chase short-term growth, making the company fragile in a downturn. They could manipulate accounting numbers to make results look better than they are, hiding underlying problems. They could create a corporate culture that is bureaucratic and resistant to change. They could fail to think like owners and instead focus on maximizing their own compensation. This inverted analysis leads directly to Buffett's famous 3 I's for judging management: integrity, intelligence, and energy. Notice the order. Integrity is first and non-negotiable. Why? Because a lack of integrity is the surest and swiftest path to ruin. An intelligent and energetic manager without integrity is a terrifying prospect, a weapon aimed directly at the shareholders. By focusing first and foremost on what he wants to avoid, dishonesty, irrationality, and a misalignment of interests, he ends up with managers who are reliable stewards of capital. He is not looking for a savior, he is looking for someone who will not sink the ship. Now let's invert the most fundamental aspect of investing: price. The novice investor asks, how high can this stock go? What's the upside? This is a question designed to fuel greed and speculation. It focuses the mind entirely on a single hoped-for outcome. Buffett, famously trained by the father of value investing, Benjamin Graham, inverts the problem entirely. His question is, what assumptions must prove true for me to suffer a permanent loss of capital on this investment? This is the psychological root of the margin of safety principle. The margin of safety is not an offensive tool for maximizing gains. It is a defensive tool for preventing loss. It is the deliberate act of purchasing an asset at a significant discount to its underlying intrinsic value. This discount is not there to create a higher return. It is there to create a buffer against the things that can go wrong. By insisting on a large margin of safety, Buffett is systematically diffusing the items on his failure checklist. What if his growth estimates are too optimistic? The margin of safety protects him. What if the industry suffers an unexpected setback? The margin of safety protects him. What if the market enters a prolonged period of panic and irrationality? The margin of safety protects him. It is the engineering equivalent of building a bridge to withstand 10 times the maximum expected load. You don't do it to make the cars go faster. You do it to ensure the bridge never, ever collapses. Finally, and perhaps most profoundly, Buffett applies inversion to himself. The ultimate inversion is to turn the analytical lens away from the world and onto your own mind. The most astute investor can have their returns destroyed not by a bad business or a high price, but by their own psychological flaws. Buffett asks, how could I, Warren Buffett, be the cause of my own financial ruin? This introspective pre-mortem is perhaps the most important of all. His answer to this question has shaped his entire operational and personal life. He knows he is susceptible to the same cognitive biases as everyone else. His defense? He has engineered his entire environment to minimize the chances that these biases can do harm. The fear of acting on poor information or getting caught up in a popular mania outside his expertise, this leads to the rigid discipline of the circle of competence. He simply does not play games he doesn't fully understand, neutralizing the risk of his own ignorance. The fear of being influenced by the market's manic-depressive mood swings, of being tempted to sell in a panic or buy in a frenzy. This leads to the mental model of Mr. Market, a tool for emotional detachment, and his physical location in Omaha, far from the distracting noise of Wall Street. He is insulating himself from emotional contagion, the fear of overactivity, of feeling the need to do something and thus making a mistake. This leads to his famous philosophy of strategic inaction, his willingness to sit for years with cash until an opportunity of immense certainty, a fat pitch, appears. This is a system designed to protect his portfolio from his own natural human impulse to act. From business quality to management, from price to personal psychology, the entire Buffett framework is a testament to the power of inversion. It is a unified theory of success, built on a foundation of avoiding failure. It is the understanding that you don't win by making brilliant moves, but by not making stupid ones. It is a cognitive fortress, built brick by brick, not to keep opportunity in, but to keep disaster out. You now possess the theory and the blueprint. You understand the cognitive science behind inversion, the two-step algorithm for its execution, and have witnessed how it operates at the highest levels in the mind of Warren Buffett. But knowledge without action is mere trivia. The purpose of deconstructing a mental operating system is not to admire its design, but to install it on your own hardware. This is where the abstract becomes concrete. This section is a practical, step-by-step guide to integrating the Inversion OS into your own decision-making process. We will begin with the most powerful tool in the Inversion toolkit, the failure pre-mortem. A standard post-mortem is conducted after a project has failed to understand what went wrong. A pre-mortem, a term coined by psychologist Gary Klein, is a revolutionary inversion of this process. You conduct the analysis before you even begin. You imagine a future where your endeavor has already failed spectacularly, and you work backward to uncover the reasons why. This is not a casual thought experiment. It is a structured, disciplined process for mapping the territory of risk before you take your first step. Let's walk through a detailed, hypothetical scenario. Imagine you are an ambitious professional named Alex. Alex has a stable, well-paying job at a large corporation but harbors a dream of launching a tech startup. The idea is for a new project management software application targeted at creative agencies. The traditional, forward-thinking approach would have Alex spend months writing a business plan focused on success. Market size projections, revenue forecasts, feature roadmaps, marketing strategies, all painting a rosy picture of a triumphant future. This is the path of the planning fallacy and overconfidence bias. Now let's have Alex install the Inversion OS and conduct a failure pre-mortem. The process begins with a clear, written statement that forces the mind into the correct frame. It is 1 year from today, and the startup has failed utterly. It has not just missed its targets. It is dead. All the money invested is gone. Alex is personally in debt and is now searching for a new job, reputation damaged. The pre-mortem team, perhaps consisting of Alex and a few trusted advisors, is now tasked with one job: to write the history of that failure. What killed the company? Everyone begins brainstorming, listing every possible cause of death, no matter how small or unlikely it seems. The floodgates open. The list grows. Numdi Games Category 1, Product and Market Failure. Asterisk, the software was buggy and unreliable, driving early users away. The feature set was too complex, and nobody understood how to use it. Or, the feature set was too simple and didn't solve a real pain point. A major competitor released a similar, better-executed product 3 months after launch. The target market of creative agencies was too small or unwilling to pay for new software. The product failed to achieve product-market fit. It was a solution in search of a problem. Naib Shamar's Category 2, Financial and Operational Failure. Asterisk. The company burned through its initial seed funding far faster than anticipated. Customer acquisition cost was dramatically higher than projected. The pricing model was flawed, leaving no room for profit. A critical server crashed, losing customer data and destroying trust. The company failed to secure a follow-on round of funding. Key operational deadlines were consistently missed, delaying the product launch until it was irrelevant. Times Category 3, People and Team Failure. Asterisk times Alex and the co-founder had a major falling out over the company's strategic direction. A key engineer, the only one who understood the core codebase, quit for a higher-paying job at a critical moment. Alex, as the CEO, proved to be a poor manager, unable to motivate the team or make tough decisions. The team suffered from extreme burnout due to an unsustainable hustle culture, leading to sloppy work and high turnover. The initial hires were not the right fit for the company's culture or needs. Times Category 4, Personal and Psychological Failure. Asterisk. Alex became emotionally attached to a specific feature, refusing to pivot even when customer feedback was overwhelmingly negative. Confirmation bias. Alex consistently underestimated timelines and budgets. Planning fallacy. Faced with early setbacks, Alex panicked and made a series of poor, short-sighted decisions. Alex failed to build a sales and marketing function because, as a technical founder, it was outside the circle of competence and felt uncomfortable. This is just a partial list. A real pre-mortem session could generate 100 or more specific, detailed failure points. The energy in the room during this process is not one of pessimism. It is one of empowerment. For the first time, the vague, amorphous cloud of risk has been broken down into a concrete list of identifiable and therefore manageable problems. The second half of the pre-mortem is to go through the list, item by item, and ask 2 questions. 1. What can we do, starting today, to reduce the probability of this specific failure point occurring? 2. What is our contingency plan if, despite our best efforts, it does occur? Suddenly, the company's strategy begins to right itself, but it is a strategy of resilience, not just growth. To prevent running out of cash, the team decides to raise slightly more capital than planned and to build a more conservative financial model with built-in buffers. To prevent co-founder conflict, Alex and the co-founder schedule a series of frank conversations to explicitly define roles, responsibilities, and a process for resolving disagreements before they start. To prevent product-market fit failure, they decide to build a much simpler minimum viable product first and get it into the hands of real users as quickly as possible, making the entire strategy contingent on real-world feedback, not internal assumptions. To prevent key engineer departure, they develop a more robust stock option plan and focus on creating a supportive work environment. This is the Inversion OS in action. The output is not a rigid plan for what to do. The output is a dynamic, resilient strategy designed around what not to do. It is a business plan engineered to survive contact with reality. You can apply this exact same process to any significant decision in your life. Considering a major career change? Conduct a pre-mortem. What if 5 years from now you deeply regret the decision? Why? List the reasons. Perhaps the new role had a toxic culture, or the industry was disrupted, or the promised autonomy never materialized. Now, what can you do during your due diligence process today to investigate and mitigate those specific risks? Considering a large financial investment, like buying a house. Conduct a pre-mortem. What if 10 years from now, this house has become a financial nightmare? Why? List the reasons. Perhaps interest rates soared, or the neighborhood declined, or you faced an unexpected, ruinously expensive maintenance issue. Now, how does that change the type of mortgage you get, the amount of research you do on the location, and the size of the emergency fund you maintain? The failure pre-mortem is your personal failure simulator. It allows you to experience the pain and learn the lessons of a decade's worth of mistakes in a single afternoon, without paying any of the real-world costs. It is the single most powerful, practical application of the inversion philosophy, a tool for transforming anxiety about the future into a concrete strategy for building a robust present. The disciplined execution of the failure pre-mortem yields a profoundly valuable asset, a comprehensive list of what can go wrong. This list is the raw material. The next step in installing the Inversion OS is to refine this raw material into a clear, concise, and ruthlessly enforced personal policy document. This is your not-to-do list. In a world obsessed with productivity hacks, life goals, and vision boards, all tools focused on what to do, the not-to-do list is a revolutionary act of strategic subtraction. It is a recognition that you can often achieve more by simply avoiding the behaviors that sabotage your progress. It is the active management of your own human fallibility. Warren Buffett's public life is a masterclass in the power of a not-to-do list. His rules are famous because they are simple, memorable, and unwavering. These are not just casual preferences. They are hard-coded algorithms in his operating system, designed to prevent the most common and catastrophic investment failures. Let's analyze a few of his core not-to-dos to understand their inverted logic. Asterisk 1. Don't invest in businesses you cannot understand. The circle of competence. Asterisk. This is a direct defense against the failure mode of acting on incomplete information. It's a rule against arrogance. During the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, Buffett was widely mocked as a dinosaur for his refusal to invest in high-flying tech stocks. He simply said he didn't understand their long-term competitive advantages or how to value them. He was not making a prediction that they would fail. He was making a statement about the limits of his own knowledge. His not-to-do list forbade him from playing a game where he felt he was at a disadvantage. When the bubble burst and trillions of dollars of speculative wealth evaporated, his discipline was vindicated. He avoided a catastrophic industry-wide failure simply by adhering to a rule of inaction. Asterisk, asterisk 2. Don't use significant borrowed money. Leverage. This is a direct defense against the failure mode of ruin due to events outside your control. Leverage is a tool that magnifies both gains and losses. It makes a system fragile. Buffett observed that nearly every major financial blow-up, from individual bankruptcies to systemic collapses like long-term capital management, had massive leverage at its core. By putting no significant leverage on his not-to-do list, he makes his enterprise, Berkshire Hathaway, incredibly robust. He may miss out on some amplified gains during bull markets, but he guarantees his survival during the inevitable panics and crashes. He is choosing to not die over the chance to win slightly bigger. Asterisk 3. Don't listen to macroeconomic forecasts or market predictions. Asterisk stops. This is a direct defense against the failure mode of making decisions based on unreliable, noisy, and often emotionally charged information. Buffett knows that the economy is a complex, adaptive system that is fundamentally unpredictable. Anyone who claims to know what the stock market will do next month or next year is either a fool or a liar. By placing forecasts on his not-to-do list, he insulates his mind from a massive source of distraction and emotional volatility. He focuses on the things he can know, the underlying economics of a specific business, and ignores the things he cannot. Now, it is time to forge your own list. Take the output from your failure pre-mortem. Look for the recurring themes, the highest leverage failure points, the vulnerabilities that are rooted in your own specific psychology, industry, or circumstances. Convert them from risks into rules. For example, if your pre-mortem on a business venture identified co-founder conflict as a major path to failure, your not-to-do list might include: do not enter into a partnership without a written agreement, clearly defining roles, equity splits, and a dissolution process. If your personal pre-mortem identified a tendency to panic sell during market downturns, your not-to-do list might include: do not check my investment portfolio more than once a quarter. Do not sell any holding based on a news headline. If your analysis of career failure showed a pattern of chasing prestigious titles over meaningful work, your list might include: do not accept a job offer solely based on its title or the company's brand. A not-to-do list is not a prison, it is a fortress. Its rules are the walls that protect you from your own worst impulses and the predictable follies of the world. It is a pre-commitment to rational behavior made during a moment of clarity, to be deployed during future moments of stress, temptation, or confusion. Creating your list is a deeply personal process. It requires radical honesty about your own weaknesses. Here are some guiding questions to help you forge your own rules for inaction. Asterisk. What activities give me the illusion of progress but consistently fail to produce real results? E.g., endlessly tweaking a presentation, attending unproductive meetings. Asterisk. What information sources consistently make me more anxious and reactive rather than more informed? E.g., cable financial news, Twitter debates. Asterisk. What types of people or situations tend to bring out my worst decision-making tendencies? Asterisk. What mistakes have I made repeatedly in the past? What simple rule would prevent me from making that same mistake a third or fourth time? Your not-to-do list should be short, specific, and absolute. Each rule should be a clear binary command. It is not, try to worry less about the market, but do not watch financial news. It is not, be better at choosing partners, but do not partner with anyone who hasn't demonstrated a long track record of integrity. This is the weaponization of inversion. It is the process of transforming a diagnosis of potential failure into an automated defense system. In a world that relentlessly screams, do more, be more, achieve more, your not-to-do list is a quiet, powerful declaration of no. It is the ultimate expression of strategic intelligence, the wisdom to know which battles not to fight, We have journeyed deep into the mechanics of inversion as a tool for finance, for business, and for career strategy. But the true power of this mental operating system is revealed when we zoom out and apply it to the broadest possible canvas, the design of a life. If inversion can be used to build a resilient portfolio, can it also be used to build a resilient and meaningful life? The answer lies in one final, brilliant inversion, most famously articulated not by Buffett, but by his partner Charlie Munger. In a famous speech, Munger did not set out to describe the path to a happy and successful life. Instead, he inverted the problem and gave a masterclass on how to guarantee a life of misery. It is perhaps the most profound and practical application of the entire inversion philosophy. Munger's prescription for a miserable life is a checklist of failure modes, a not-to-do list for human existence. His ingredients for guaranteed misery include *mendv*. To spend your life feeling bitter about what others have is to ensure you will never appreciate what you have. *resentment. To carry grudges and nurse grievances is to drink poison and expect the other person to die. It consumes your mental energy and locks you in the past. Unreliability. To be someone who cannot be counted on, who does not do what they say they will do, is to systematically destroy the foundation of all meaningful relationships and opportunities. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to fully repair. Learning only from your own experiences. To refuse to learn from the vicarious experiences of others, from the successes and failures detailed in history and biography, is to condemn yourself to making every painful mistake for yourself. It is a path of maximum suffering and minimum progress. Giving up after the first, second, or third failure. To lack the persistence to overcome the inevitable setbacks of life is to guarantee that you will never achieve anything difficult or worthwhile. Munger's logic is devastatingly simple. He is not providing a complex formula for happiness, which is a vague, subjective, and often elusive target. Instead, he is identifying the universally acknowledged pathways to misery, the clear and obvious poisons to a good life. The path to a successful and non-miserable life, therefore, is not about finding a magic bullet for happiness. It is about the disciplined, lifelong avoidance of these self-destructive behaviors. The goal is not to be brilliant, it is to consistently not be a fool. This is the ultimate inversion. Instead of asking, "What will make me happy?" you ask, "What are the things that would absolutely guarantee my misery, and how can I build systems and habits to avoid them at all costs?" This changes everything. The quest for happiness often leads to a, quote, hedonic treadmill, where achievements provide only fleeting satisfaction, but the avoidance of misery leads to the construction of a solid foundation of well-being, strong relationships built on trust, a mind free from the cancer of envy, and the quiet satisfaction of being a reliable and continuously learning individual. Warren Buffett has, in his own way, designed his entire life around this principle of inverted life design. Consider his famous lifestyle. He lives in the same modest house in Omaha he bought in 1958. He eats simple food like hamburgers and Coca-Cola. He spends the vast majority of his day sitting in a chair, reading and thinking. To an outside world obsessed with the trappings of wealth, mansions, yachts, a frantic schedule of meetings, his life seems like an anomaly. But through the lens of inversion, it is a masterpiece of strategic design. He is not optimizing for the appearance of success. He is optimizing for the avoidance of failure modes that could disrupt his primary goal, a life of rational thought and effective capital allocation. A huge mansion? It adds complexity, distraction, and overhead. A jet-setting lifestyle? It drains time and mental energy that could be spent reading, living in New York or Silicon Valley. It would expose him to constant noise, groupthink, and the pressure to follow fads. His simple life is a fortress. It is a meticulously constructed environment designed to protect his mind from distraction, from ego, from envy, and from the irrationality of the crowd. He has inverted the question, "What does a billionaire's life look like?" and instead asked, "What are the things that would prevent me from thinking clearly and making rational decisions for the long term?" His life is the answer to that question. This is the final challenge that the Inversion OS presents to you. Take this tool and apply it to the very architecture of your life. Conduct a pre-mortem on your own happiness. Imagine yourself at age 80, looking back on a life filled with regret. What choices, what habits, what behaviors led you there? List them. The habit of prioritizing work over family. The failure to take care of your physical health. The tendency to compare your life to the curated highlight reels of others on social media. The fear of taking a calculated risk on something you truly believed in. That list is your roadmap. It is a personalized guide to the landmines you must avoid. From it, you can forge your ultimate not-to-do list, a set of principles for living a life that is not just financially successful, but fundamentally sound. In the end, the philosophy of inversion is a philosophy of humility. It is the recognition that the world is complex and unpredictable, and our own minds are flawed and biased. It is the understanding that true wisdom lies not in our ability to predict the future, but in our ability to prepare for its uncertainties. It is the profound realization that the most reliable way to win is to build a system that makes it impossible to lose. We have journeyed to the very core of one of the most powerful mental operating systems ever devised. We have deconstructed its psychological foundations, mapped its practical algorithms, and witnessed its application in building one of the world's greatest fortunes and designing a life of profound rationality. We have established that the master key to superior performance is not the pursuit of genius but the relentless avoidance of stupidity. This is the logic of inversion, a cognitive discipline for achieving success by systematically identifying and neutralizing every possible pathway to failure. You now have the architecture of this system. You have the blueprint for the failure pre-mortem, the tool for forging your not-to-do list, the framework for designing a life that is robust against the inevitable chaos of the world. You have been given the master tool for diagnosing weakness, for finding the hidden cracks in any plan, any organization, any system. And now, you must learn to point this powerful lens at the world around you. We have focused on how to avoid the internal, self-inflicted causes of failure. But what happens when the failure mode is not an individual mistake, but a systemic disease? What is the single greatest generator of large-scale corporate failure and value destruction in the modern world? It's a psychological virus that infects boardrooms and executive suites. A cognitive contagion that compels even the smartest people to make catastrophically stupid decisions in unison. It is a force that rewards mindless imitation, punishes original thought, and drives organizations to pursue growth for its own sake, often leading them directly to the brink of ruin. It is the institutional embodiment of everything inversion is designed to fight. Warren Buffett has spent his entire life diagnosing and avoiding this specific corporate sickness. He has a name for it. He calls it the institutional imperative. To fully weaponize your newfound power of inversion, you must understand how to apply it to this specific and deadly external threat. You must learn to recognize its symptoms, understand its transmission vectors, and build a cognitive immunity to its influence. The documentary appearing on your screen right now is the complete deconstruction of that corporate virus. It is the next essential layer in building your cognitive fortress against failure. It is the field guide for applying the tool you have just acquired. Click and continue your training.